Hi, my name is Tom Johnson, and this is another podcast from my website, I'dRatherBeWriting.com. I'dRatherBeWriting.com is a blog where I write about all things related to technical writing, software documentation, API documentation, and so on, and how all the current trends, whether it's AI or something else, play into it. This post in particular that I'm going to be creating an audio version of is called My 2024 Trends and Predictions. And the post is entirely written if you prefer to read it, but I'm also trying to mix in some audio versions of things, so the audio versions don't really map exactly to the written version. They're more human, natural, and spontaneous. So whether that's good or bad, I don't yet know. But anyway, I've been mulling over whether I should even write this post because I didn't really feel as if I had a strong grasp on what the trends would be. And, get tired of these trends posts, but I had these little thoughts surfacing in my mind, and I thought, you know what, might as well get them out. It will help me think through and sort through my thoughts and ideas. So with that, let's jump into things here. I think the big question going into 2024 is really, will AI disrupt tech writer job roles? We've been feeling kind of these inklings and rumors and a lot of uncertainty about this, particularly because the AIs, the LLM-powered artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Bard, and others, they can write. They really can take unstructured text and create, fluid text that sounds real, natural, that is oftentimes accurate. So, there's a real concern, and rightly so, that maybe our jobs are at stake. And there have been some other posts that I published about Forrester that was predicting, hey, there's going to be potential for automation with tech writing jobs and so on. And I think this has created a lot of uncertainty. If you were to distill what are the main things we're curious about, we're worried about, it is this potential for job loss due to automation. Now, this is something I haven't really known how to get a handle on, because for years this meme has been going around. Actually, there was a time when these memes were really popular, but this meme that says, it's kind of the what others think I do meme. And in the first quadrant, it's like what my family thinks I do, and it's hieroglyphics. What society thinks I do, and it's Clippy. What recruiters think I do, and it's like a bunch of tools, hat tool, help authoring tools. What developers think I do, and the person's sleeping. What I think I do, and it's this massive grid of everything interconnected. What I actually do, and this what I actually do chart has writing as a tiny sliver, and then everything else is the rest of the pie chart. And this is the part that I think is the crux of the problem. We spend only a fraction of our time actually writing. And what these AI tools can do, they're like power tools for writing sometimes. When you have to crank through a bunch of content and generate out summaries, explanations, step-by-step procedures, and so on, they can do that well. But the problem is, we don't spend that much time actually writing. Most of the time we spend doing things around writing, the meta part of writing. And so if these tools, these AI tools, can help write for us, well, that's great. But if it only impacts a tiny sliver of what we actually do, then how can that replace an entire role? That's the part I can't quite get past. And the problem is that we sort of have a brand problem in TechCom, because most other people think we do sit there writing all day, even if people are like, oh, are they sleeping? Are they writing hieroglyphics and so on? Whatever it is that people think, there's a strong conception that a tech writer spends 80% of his or her day sitting there typing and writing on the keyboard. So why is it that AI writing tools couldn't heavily displace that role? Well, that's sort of the conundrum. And I think companies who are really trying to get like AI powered workflows into tech writing workflows are running into this problem where they're like, well, we don't know which scenarios these tools are going to entirely replace. We can think of like, oh, we could use it here or we could use it there. But they end up being kind of like miscellaneous odds and ends use cases. Like, oh, I could use AI to maybe distill a large bug thread into a quick summary for a release note. Okay, so that's a use case. But that bug summary probably doesn't take up the bulk of what we do. So anyway, yeah, it's kind of a really interesting conundrum, but I definitely think that this question, will AI disrupt tech writer job roles, will be the question of 2024. And we've seen that people are trying to actively use AI for like customer service roles, right? People who are interfacing with chat with companies and finding quick answers to commonly asked questions and so on. But will it expand into more heavy-duty technical writing roles? All right. The next topic I want to explore is, will AI tools expand from niche to mainstream audiences? This is, I think, a trend that will really define how important AI becomes. I've noticed that AI tools are really helpful when I'm actively creating content. I mean, not only do I work as a technical writer, working with written words all day in code and so on, but I also have a blog and a podcast. I run and maintain the Jekyll websites. That's what I use for both of them. So I'm like actively creating a lot of content, doing my own tech and so on. But I'm sort of a niche audience. And I think a lot of content creators, people who write code, people who are creating things, fall into a category where AI is really useful. But for the mainstream audience, mainstream people who aren't creators, I don't think it's really taken hold as much. And my big question is, if it doesn't catch the mainstream attention, if AI doesn't become like integral to what mainstream people use every day, then will it really be as big of a trend as people think? If it's just limited to creator types, coders, writers, and so on, how far will it go? I'm sort of thinking back to a time when I was working at Amazon, probably 5+ years ago, where the Alexa device was super popular, and Amazon was in the process of Alexifying everything because it wanted to really be the first to market with speech and be this layer, this like speech layer on the whole physical world. And so many resources were devoted to Alexifying things. I myself didn't do that much Alexa stuff. I was more involved in like devices, but I worked on a lot of things, and with other teams entirely focused on this. Well, eventually I think Amazon realized that like people were not ordering and buying a lot of stuff through Alexa. Mostly people use it for weather, traffic, time, measurement, conversions, math questions, kind of simple things. And I think a lot of the digital assistants lost their runway. Like they had a certain amount of time to become profitable. They didn't, and then a lot of those projects sort of tanked. So my question is, with AI, is it going to follow a similar trajectory where it's got a certain amount of runway, and then if people find that, oh, you know what, it's a really cool technology, but it's not really like leading to direct profits, will it continue to receive funding and attention and resourcing and so on? from other things. When will it actually flip to catch the imagination of the mainstream audience? My wife really, she works as a like administrator, event admin coordinator person for academics. It doesn't really find it that useful in her routine. And my kids, they're all in school. One of my children will use it to try to understand physics as kind of a last resort. But definitely it's not really taken hold. So I'd be really curious to see if it's able to expand. Now, you could equally say that, well, even if the mainstream people don't really start using AI will probably be what helps people develop, what helps the creators develop new products, new services, and these products and services will be used by mainstream people. I totally believe that. So this whole question of niche versus mainstream might just be a red herring here, but it's certainly something I'm thinking about. Let's move on to another question. Will the internet dynamics shift away from traditional SEO? This is a huge kind of question in my mind. Is traditionally people, I write a blog post and search engines pick it up, and then people see my blog posts in search results. They click links back to my site. This is like the fundamental way that the internet sort of works across so many different companies and products. As people are producing content, that content is picked up by search engines, and that is what brings people to their sites and so on. And entire industries around SEO are shaping content to try to attract more people to their sites through better search engine rankings. Well, if you take away this element of having links pointing back to creator sites, then how will the internet economy work? How will companies make their products visible? How will they find incentive to create content if it doesn't lead to traffic on their websites? I think this is a question that will have to be answered. And how will the new dynamics shift? I know a lot of people, especially if you read Hacker News, Reddit, and so on, they really dislike ads in search results and feel like there's been decay in these platforms. But I really, as a person who has a blog and is producing content, I really enjoy this sort of give and take. I create content, but I get traffic back. And there's been that exchange, and the AI tools really are threatening to disrupt that give and take relationship where there's something to benefit for both parties. So it'll be interesting to see what new exchange is being made there. And that will definitely impact companies as well as content production of companies. A lot of the writer-related jobs, mostly outside of TechCom, but still writing related, focus on creating content as a way to increase traffic and increase business. If you take that content away from the way that people get traffic in business, then it'd be a huge, huge shift. All right, another theme, I touched on this earlier, so I'm kind of doubling back here. This isn't the most organized post here. But job stability. I find myself thinking every now and then, what would I do if tech writing jobs dried up? I mean, am I enjoying the last of the good years where there are tech writing jobs that pay well and are in abundance? Are we just starting the beginning of a decline where there'll be fewer and fewer jobs every year? And if I had to switch to some other line of work, what would it be? Would I become an English teacher? Oh my gosh, that fills me with nightmares. Would I switch to some kind of service-oriented job, like a technician? It'd be so difficult to start over at this point in my career. I really love working with content, with writing in all forms. It would be really sad if writing-related jobs were just sort of impacted heavily by AI such that it no longer became lucrative to support a family. And when I think of alternatives, like what would I do besides these jobs? Like that is really what impacts me the most. And I really think, gosh, well, if I had to jump outside of it, what would I do? Maybe become some kind of like content producer as part of whatever new form of SEO emerges to like influence chatbots. But I can't see myself cranking out 10 like AI written articles quickly in order to kind of shift directions. And, that just doesn't seem very meaningful. Although maybe, who knows, maybe it could be fun, but can't be a job that I would feel great about. And so I've also thought, well, gosh, what happens if like the jobs move overseas? Because now English language doesn't become a barrier to writing fluent, articulate, grammatically correct content and so on. Would I relocate? There's like all kinds of questions about job stability that I think are really pressing and a little depressing as well. There's not a whole lot one can do. There's a lot of like dynamics at play that could produce major disruption, and it's probably too early to really start thinking about that anyway. So with that, let me get more into tech writer specific directions that I see happening in 2024 and probably beyond that aren't so radical. The first is that I really see AI being more fully integrated into tech writing workflows. I think in 2023, the latter half, people were just sort of dipping their toes into AI tools, seeing how they work, what they're useful for, getting a feel for them. In 2024, I think the AI tools will be a constant companion. You will use it for a variety of tasks. It will be something, let's say you need a quick summary, you need an example of something, you need to interpret code. For the infinite variety of tasks, you will find an AI tool to become an invaluable companion and something that assists you. And people will get good at making queries, understanding what works, what doesn't. And it'll be something that's fully integrated into a lot of different aspects of people's workflow. And I think a lot of these chatbots will get pretty good. We'll see the quality increase, and as the quality increases, they'll become more useful. Things will become more accurate and more detailed. You might find that they do a better job in many cases. I know that like with a lot of the newsletters I subscribe to, I feel as if most of the people use AI to get the summaries written. And I've already welcomed that as a user. I don't really care if the summaries are human written. And I think writers will care less if things are written by humans or written by people. And users will be more accepting of AI written content as well. As long as it's accurate and has been reviewed, I think people will embrace it. I think if writers use more AI tools to do some of the power writing, the writers themselves will focus more on content strategy, looking at the meta around writing. Questions like, how does content for two different APIs compare if they're highly similar? And looking at the larger developer portal and like the workflows through it, the challenges, the pain points, and so on. Not being so focused on just, hey, document this new feature, document this new API, but how do all these APIs work together in our developer portal, and what are the points of confusion, and where are they inconsistent, that kind of thing. So more content strategy things, these strategic roles that don't easily outsource into AI. I also think that tech writers will focus more on chatbots and how to configure them. I think in 2024, we'll see a lot of like doc chatbots become ready and integrated into websites, developer portals. Tech writers will begin to become much more scientific about how to fine tune them. We'll develop benchmark tests. Maybe you look through your docs and you find 100 questions and you create some golden answers to those questions, and then you compare the chatbot's answers to the golden answers, see where there's a discrepancy, and then define your work around closing the gaps on all those discrepancies. I think that will be the core of what people focus on. I think it'll be a fun time to experiment with these bots and see how our work is interpreted, and suddenly understand that, oh, this isn't very clear in the docs, and now I can see how users might be going astray, and we'll write FAQs and other sort of content to try to steer the outputs of these large language models into the direction that we want. So there'll be a lot more focus on, like, how do you configure these chatbots? How do you influence them? How do we test them? How do we get them working really well with our content? I think these tools will mature and become much more readily available to us. And I think this is probably the area that it would make most sense to specialize at this point. If you're worried about job instability, think about what it would do for your career if you were really expert at implementing and configuring and testing a chatbot. I'm sure any doc team, especially, think smaller ones that don't have tools teams, any documentation team would readily welcome this kind of knowledge to their team. And it will probably be important, at least for the next few years, while these technologies mature. Another big prediction I have is that AI will extend technology into a lot of new domains. Think about the way that technology might be made more applicable, how it might become mature in domains where maybe tech wasn't as present. This could be like in therapy domains, an AI therapist, or maybe in climate and forecasting. It could even be in other areas like security, home security, company security. How do you configure your AI so that it correctly recognizes intruders versus regular people, and so on? There are a lot of different areas that it could become much more of a prominent player, even in a darker side, how AI becomes integrated into warfare, military, that kind of thing. Just schools. I think schools will eventually embrace AI. They'll find that they can't kind of stop students from using it, and they'll find that it's actually more useful than harmful. AI will potentially, I think already there's some news headlines I've seen about the influence on electric vehicles and energy models and batteries and bringing the costs down. So there's a potential for AI to bring a technology boom to a lot of new domains where previously technology wasn't really as strong. That could extend a lot of new writing opportunities. Maybe you'll be documenting things that previously weren't tech heavy. And, if you think about some of the lessons of the pandemic, one lesson was that when people, during the pandemic, technology thrived because there was more people online. And when technology thrives, tech jobs thrive. There were lots of hiring, and the big tech companies skyrocketed in terms of their usage and sales and hiring and all that. So if you look into the future and you see, we're becoming more tech-centric, tech is spreading into other domains and fields and becoming more useful and integrated, then it would follow that there would be more tech jobs and more tech writer jobs as well. So it's like kind of a good sign that tech might be amplifying and extending its reach. A good sign that is for like job abundance in the tech sector. All right, finally, I think APIs will continue to be strong. I think more and more companies want to build their own things using APIs that provide the right services and data and so on. But maybe the types of APIs that we document will sort of transition behind the scenes. Like in AI, we'll be calling different APIs in the background. Let's say that you use an AI and you want to get the weather. Well, that might kick off some kind of weather API to go interact with weather data API services. So it'll be really interesting to see if like the APIs shift more towards a behind the scenes implementation, and maybe the code samples or the other implementations are not, maybe they become specific to AI tools. Like, how do you implement this API in your AI chatbot? That could be really interesting. Think about also the potential for AI agents to connect services together with APIs. For example, let's say you have a newsletter that you produce, and you can decompose the steps in the newsletter to like 5 different steps. You find interesting links. That's step 1. Step 2 is you create summaries of the links. Step 3, you get some images for the summaries. Step 4, you package all the summaries and the images into a newsletter layout. And step 5, you put that newsletter layout and content into an email delivery service. Well, between each link in these steps, maybe APIs can kind of push content from one stage to the other. This is certainly an interesting extension, the whole idea of AI agents kind of working in the background, doing all these other tasks without requiring active explicit instructions at each step of the way. I think APIs will link up those workflows and allow for more complex results because of those workflows. But the glue is still going to be APIs, and APIs will require documentation. All right, so those are pretty much my main trends, main ideas. I think I mentioned at the start, I don't feel a tremendous amount of certainty. I think things could go in so many different directions. It could go great. It could go terrible. It become terrible. It could just kind of fizzle. Things could stay relatively similar. It's very difficult to tell. There's also a tremendous amount of kind of world events going on that might impact things. But in general, I am hopeful because of what I said earlier about how when tech thrives, tech writers tend to thrive. And so I hope that this 2024 year will be a year where maybe it's somewhat rejuvenating when we get new tools, new workflows, new ideas. It could be a monumental shift. This might be the year where we sort of stop writing and instead spend way more time on content strategy and all the meta tasks around writing. That would be really kind of an interesting shift. But we'll see how it goes. Again, my blog is I'dRatherBeWriting.com. Check it out, subscribe, and I really appreciate you listening. Thank you.